Hey, good evening, everyone. I chose this week's form, and I specifically picked Mormonism. I'm not a Mormon, and I wanted to kind of really dive into, Joseph Smith's chosen religion, I guess. So, Mormonism is born in about 1830 in New York, with Joseph Smith being its founder. It comes out of the Burned Over District, which we learned is a place that during the Second Great Awakening, there's just a plethora of new and innovative ideas about Christianity. We see a bunch of small groups that most of them don't survive this period, but the Mormons did. I think we all kind of are familiar with the story that Joseph Smith had a divine visitation come. It was an angel that told him about these golden tablets. He goes and he finds the golden tablets, and then he writes the Book of Mormonism about it. At its heart, and this is kind of where I wanted to lean into, according to its founder, that Mormonism is centered on the fundamental principles the fundamental principles of Jesus Christ, that he lived, he died, and he rose 3 days later, making all other aspects of the religion subordinate to this fact. And I'll get into that here in just a second, but Mormonism kind of grows. They've got about 12 to 15,000 followers. Today, there's about 7 million followers, give or take, according to the main website for the Church of Latter-day Saints. They don't really have a home. Like a lot of smaller religions, they are just out there trying to find a place, really a base camp, to have their own form of their Christianity views. They first kind of start in Ohio, they move over to Missouri, they do some time in Illinois. And then unfortunately in 1844, Joseph Smith is assassinated. He's murdered, and I think it's a really important part of their history. Brigham Young ends up taking over, and he pushes them into Utah and what I think we all know is the Great Trek. They move over to Utah, and they really create the Mormonism that we know today. This very isolated town. It's socially different than most other towns in the United States. It has its own form of really Mormonism laws, and they're kind of seen as outsiders today, and they were for sure seen as outsiders really during the 1830s and the 1840s when they were trying to find somewhere to go, and they just couldn't. And I brought up the first part to really ask this question. A quick Google search today yielded a really simple answer. I said, are Mormons classified as Christians? Google said yes. At the end of that, though, it addressed that not everybody sees that, right? We know that the Protestants during the time period of the Second Great Awakening did not view that. They viewed the Book of Mormonism is really a different form of the Bible. They saw it as really being, heresy in a sense. They were born out of rebellion. They were born out of kind of the same aspect of really that the Puritans did. They wanted to go to a place and they wanted to have their own form of Christianity. And I guess the question that I want to leave you guys with here in really the last minute is, what's everybody's thoughts on this? Because I'm kind of torn between the two. I kind of see the way that they thought of themselves as, 1830s Puritans. We need to find our own way. I don't really agree with the Golden Tablet theory. Then again, I wasn't there, so I can't disprove or prove it. But I would like to know everybody's opinion. Really, that short Google search, yes or no, how do we feel and do we really agree with it? Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your feedback.